Welcome to the Falling Off the Floor podcast. I'm your host, Austin Becker, and this is your home for adventure, travel, addiction, recovery, the outdoor and ski industry, and of course, redemption. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Falling Off the Floor podcast. This week, we have a special guest, Drew Petersen. Drew recently was posting about a film that he's doing, and I was super moved by the idea of it and everything, because it is like everything that I try and do with this podcast and everything that we did with the fundraiser this year. So without further ado, I will let you introduce yourself, Drew, and kind of tell the audience a little bit about you and what you're doing today.
Thanks, Austin. Thanks for having me on. My name is
Yeah.
Drew Petersen. I do a hell of a lot of things, and I wear a ton of different hats. The hat that most people probably know me for is I'm a professional skier, but on top of that, I'm also a passionate ultra runner, filmmaker, writer, creative. Man, I do a lot of different things, produce events, all sorts of stuff, and I try to use all those different hats and all those different avenues and this life and platform and career I've built as a way to advocate for mental health and suicide awareness. And ultimately my mission is to change the culture of mental health and suicide at large, but what I really focus on certainly right now is the outdoor community. And so what we're chatting about today is my upcoming film, Feel It All, which epitomizes this whole mission and kind of epitomizes wearing so many hats too.
Yeah, I like I mentioned, I was moved by the trailer. I knew of you. This is our first time kind of putting a face to the name, and other than Instagram, and I saw that trailer and I was like, man, this is really freaking cool. And it's what I try and do with this podcast. It's what I try and do in my content creation. Everything I do, I try to push that medium, that like it's okay to not be okay. Uh, Something I was just talking about with another pro skier, Ben Harrington, the other day. We were chatting about like him and his injuries and like the mental health that came with that. And so many people look at especially like freestyle big mountain skiers as like, oh, these guys have like nuts of steel, like they can handle anything. And it's like, no, like everyone's human. Just because someone's like good at skiing doesn't mean that they're not, and they might have a lower like fear center than other people. um, there is still mental health and things that we deal with, and grinding, and like we're human beings. So I was moved by the trailer. Can you tell the audience a little bit, like, what is the movie about? What is kind of the storyline of it, and how does it tie back into that whole mental health and suicide awareness within the outdoor industry?
Yeah. Feel It All chronicles my journey from suicidal depression to ultimately setting a goal to run the Leadville 100 and the strength, resilience, passion, purpose found within that goal. And while I'm pursuing that goal, the story's encapsulated by skiing all the peaks around the Leadville 100 course. And then we use the story arc of actually running the race, 100-mile ultra marathon through the Rocky Mountains of Colorado. And weave in skiing the peaks around the course, and then weave in all these different anecdotal stories to tell the story of my personal mental health journey. And what we use that for is to make it relatable and make it resonate with others, because obviously the only lens I have through which to see the world is my own, but want to use that lens in a way that can resonate with other people so that they can see themselves in my experience. And I don't really speak directly to other people's experience in this film or in most of the work that I do, because for that reason, my lens is my own, and use that to just connect with people on a human level. So that's what this film does. And it's really fun too, because it combines my two favorite sports. Like I
Yeah.
said, most people know me from skiing. And so
Yeah.
this is a ski film, but it's a ski film that's about running, and it's a running film that's about mental health, and it's a mental health film that's about suicide. So it's all the things and all these different passions kind of converging into one. And on top of that, the passion for the mountains and passion for living right here in Colorado.
Dude, I'm very impressed and so happy uh, that someone was able to make this thing kind of happen. Um, I've been talking with the guys like Ben Harrington and John Padilla, the guys that did Mountain in My Mind, The Mountain in My Mind. Um, and it's inspiring and so needed in this industry that thank you for doing this. It is a huge passion of mine. And that's like why I started this podcast was to share my story and how action sports and skiing were kind of my saving grace, and it just needs to continue to be done. So for the listeners, when is the film coming out?
Well, there's been an asterisk on that question for a long time. I've been working on this film for 2 years. The struggle is still getting it funded. So right now I'm fundraising for the film via Kickstarter, via crowdfunding. And if the crowdfunding campaign works, then we're going to be able to release this film in June, get it out to the world, and start using it to help people. If we can't get it quite across the finish line with the Kickstarter, then that rollout will switch to the end of the July and the beginning of August. But that's a that's a nuts and bolts answer of saying it's coming out this summer. We have the film practically finished. We're gonna have the final export this week, so it's ready. It's ready to come out of the oven, and like I said, we're excited to use it to start helping people, and like kind of I appreciate the support and just like that gesture of appreciating bringing this to the community, and that's the real purpose of it. Like,
Yeah.
I make this film, I do everything that I do to help other people and to shift culture. Like, uh it's I I think like maybe one of my like toxic traits is I'm just super bullheaded, and I believe that I can kind of do anything. And
Yep.
so I got this idea to make this new film, started working on it a week after my last one released 2 years ago, and uh ultimately just said fuck it, I'm doing this because I know that it's going to help people. So
Yeah.
it's really exciting to actually be in this moment where it's on the horizon to be able to make that mission a reality.
That's incredible, man. Who did Are you kind of self-producing it? Who has been your team helping you like with filming and bringing this whole thing home?
Yeah, I'm self-producing it, and then my co-director is this dude named Jesse Levine. He lives in Crested Butte, Colorado. He's got a company called Real Motion Films.
Yeah.
Most of his work used to be in the ski world. Now he does a bunch of commercial work. He does all sorts of cool shit. He's won an Emmy for branded content. Like,
Wow.
brilliant creative mind, and I owe a lot to him, and I lend a lot of credit to him for realizing this vision. And
Yeah.
so Jesse and I started working on this by skiing the peaks around Leadville 2 years ago in the spring of 2022, and it's pretty wild how much we've shared on this journey of making this film for two
Yeah.
years. Like, he's become such a close homie, and we barely knew each other when we started working on this stuff, and it's cool too, just like how much life we've both lived and gotten to share through it. So he's my co-director, and then our editor and kind of like director of post-production is another friend, Tyler Boyd, who Jesse's worked with a ton. Used to be his
Yeah.
intern way back in the day. Now he's like got a wife and kids, lives in Fort Collins.
Wow.
Great editor, and it's been super fun to work with him too. It's when we're working on films, and especially like like I said, my vision to see the world is only my own lens.
Yeah.
So that comes with some drawbacks. Like, I can't see things as objectively, so I put a lot of trust in the guys who I worked with to have a more objective view on things, and be able to say, yeah, this is going to resonate. Or or sometimes, the nature of filmmaking is you get too you like fall in love with a clip or something too much, and it's good to have those guys realizing all that. And then we got some other guys, some other friends and contractors who shot some of the footage. There's some contributions of footage from some other folks, from Blank Collective Films, some of the ski action stuff, and then this company called Dragon Fruit Video helped us with some of the Level 100 race coverage stuff. And then, yeah, we've got some guys working on color, sound, motion graphics right now, and they're all doing a fucking amazing job. And it's even when I start sharing that and just like say a bunch of those names out loud, like that's only part of it, like it's
Yeah.
so cool to be able to go through that, because this really is a lot of people realizing a vision, and it's a lot of homies who believe in the passionate mission that I have for changing the culture of mental health, and they're willing to put their talent and time behind that. So deeply grateful, and very, yeah, very grateful to everybody who's helped and continues to help on it.
Yeah, I love it, man. I absolutely love it. And I think that is such an important part about filmmaking, is highlighting like each person that was involved. Filmmaking is such a, a broad term. And a lot of people like will watch a film and they don't really think about all the things that go into it. It's just like, oh, that was cool. I paid $10 and I saw a 2 hour film and I was entertained, and they don't really think about like everything that goes into it. Um, and I love that you did have that support for this mission, because it is something that I'm truly passionate about. Other people are truly passionate about, and it's starting to move the dial in this direction of people being more aware of this being a problem within the ski industry, and people realizing that, like, yeah, we might ski hard all day and party harder all night, but like people are human beings and they struggle with substance abuse and they struggle with mental health or suicidal ideation. And this winter I got introduced to some really cool individuals that had been doing a fundraiser out in Utah for suicide prevention, and they asked me to come on. And like that whole experience of the people we got to talk to on the tram off the circuit Snowbird, just like you get jammed in this little thing and there's like cameras out, and people start asking like, what are you guys doing? And it starts that conversation of like, oh, we're skiing as much as possible in a X amount of time, and for every lap we do, it raises money for mental health and suicide prevention. um, and that's what I hope happens with this film, and I know it will. That people will see it, and it starts that conversation. That conversations will happen when you don't even know they're happening, but they're happening behind closed doors. People will see it and be like, "Hey, man, did you see that Drew Peterson film? Like that, you should check it out," or whatever. And it starts that conversation. So, kudos to you. Kudos to your team and everyone that you've worked with to start to bring this to the finish line. And for the listeners, go support this thing. Seriously. Uh, it's on Kickstarter, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on Kickstarter. You can find the link on my Instagram, Drew Peterski, or I imagine if you Google
Yeah.
Kickstarter Feel It All film, it'll come up.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
And I'll
but
throw it here in the description of the podcast for the listeners as well.
thanks,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. So outside of skiing and running and all this, I know like you're involved in POW, Protect Our Winters, and other initiatives. What makes Drew Drew? Like, we can click on to Instagram and we see you're a skier and a runner and do all of these things, but like what truly makes you you, outside of what the world sees?
Yeah. That's a really simple question, so thanks for that. I'm a very passionate human being I'm a very passionate human being, and I am deeply committed to and grateful for the journey of personal growth that I am on, that is fueling my passion for and connection with the outside world, the mountains that surround me, and the community that I'm grateful to already be connected to and be building.
Yeah.
Um, so I joke about that being a simple answer, but I think that's a big part of the exploration of all that I do. It's been a big part of the exploration of my mental health journey and my relationship with sport, with skiing, with my professional skiing career. Is this question of identity? So, that's actually that's probably pretty damn similar to answer that I give in the interview that didn't make the cut in the film, but it's certainly a implicit through line is that exploration of identity. So I appreciate you asking it in that way, not just what's your job.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people can get confused on like who people truly are. You put things on social media. Uh, Anyone puts things on social media, and for a lot of it, like that's not what life is truly like to 100%. It's like we're going to be posting things to social media that we're passionate about, but a lot of the times you don't see on social media like who is this person to the full extent. What are their passions? And like I try and do that in social media, but I don't I not everyone knows everything about me, uh, and my audience or people that listen to the podcast still don't know every piece about me. So I think that's something that I like to ask people that are passionate about, you know, things. And I think a lot of people can get a skewed vision of what makes us us, whether that's social media, media as a whole, um, and yeah, this is a space that I try and be like unapologetically myself. Uh, I joke on here that if I was ever looking for a job again, that a potential employer would listen to this and be like, "What the fuck is wrong with this guy?" And that's I don't care though, because at the end of the day, I hope that my past mistakes and my past struggles are a reminder to someone that is in that exact same seat that yeah, you can get out of it. You can push on to the next objective, and uh, there is light at the end of the tunnel, even when it doesn't feel like there is. Um, so a little bit, I wanted to hear a little bit more kind of about your backstory. I know I've seen things on the internet like you had an accident in Mount Hood that shaped some pretty large portions of your life. Like, where did you grow up here in Colorado?
Yeah, I grew up right here in Silverthorne, Colorado, right in the heart of Summit County. A Basin was my home mountain.
Awesome.
I was actually born in Vail
Wow.
because there wasn't a hospital in Summit County at the time,
Yeah.
which cracks people up now that Summit County's certainly a lot busier. But yeah, born in Vail in the middle of June, and there was a snowstorm when my mom had to drive over the pass to get to a hospital in June. So kind of born right into all this, and
Yeah.
was very privileged and grateful to grow up right in the heart of the mountains in a ski town.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I too grew up in a ski town, and I think a lot of every time I tell someone like, "Oh, I'm from Big Bear, California," they're like, "Oh, that must have been so cool growing up there." And the like high school age version of me would have been like, no, it's such a small town, like you don't see a lot of the benefit of it. But man, looking back, like my ski career and my love for the outdoors and everything literally started at birth. I was like born right into that, so I totally understand where you're coming with like, yeah, it was a cool place to be. and surrounded by mountains and surrounded by skiing and biking and all the cool things that you and I do today. Probably happened the second we came out of the womb. You're like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. Can't
Yeah.
remember it, but pretty neat. Um, so tell me more about this accident you had on Mount Hood. What happened kind of before leading up to it, and then what was the outcome of everything?
Yeah, I know that you know it well. Like one of the challenges of storytelling, whether it be podcast, written form, film, whatever, is figuring out how to tell really big, complicated stories. So, like, we get into the accent a little bit and feel it all. It's different than it's ever been told before, for good reason. And for other folks too. This is chronicled a little bit more so in my last film, which is called Ups and Downs. If they want to check that out, but
Yeah,
um, so what we're talking about is an accident that happened on May 10th, 2017. But when we're talking about this, like in the frame or the mindset of mental health, like this is it's the greatest, most important turning point, inflection point in my life. But it's just that it's an inflection point. So I've been struggling with mental health even when I didn't have the language for it, all the way back to when I was a little kid. The earliest memory that I have of suicidal thoughts is from when I was 9 years old, and who knows how long it had been going on before that. I also had a lot of concussions when I was young, so like my memories of childhood are pretty skewed, but very vivid memories of those thoughts from when I was 9, because I was in the 4th grade. And then kind of went on, especially for being born in the 90s, growing up in the like early aughts, like um, kind of classic, like societally, we don't talk about mental health very much in a ski town. Certainly don't talk about anything except pure stoke for skiing.
yeah,
I certainly didn't have any role models, especially male role models exhibiting vulnerability. So I hid what was going on inside for a very long time. For um, you know the what I hope is the first quarter of my life. I hope that I live long and grow old. I didn't want to do that for a long time, so it's I like saying that out loud too. Um,
yeah,
and so uh, when I was struggling with mental health, suicidal thoughts, depression, I just hid that from the rest of the world, put on a smiling face, masked it in uh, what started as academics when I was a kid, and success in school to success in skiing, pouring myself into my ski career, drinking, partying, basically anything to put on a face and to numb it away. And then all that kind of came to a T, and ran out. And I had to face my reality head on, in what you asked about, the accident on May 10th, 2017. So at the time, I was on a road trip to climb and ski the highest peak in every state of the American West. The day before, we skied Tahoma, Mount Rainier in Washington. Uh, Drove down to Oregon, and went to go ski Mount Hood. Um, long story short, we were on the east face of Mount Hood on the Newton Clark head wall, and things were heating up. Um, but we hadn't seen or heard any signs of rockfall all day. That's what we're worried about when we're skiing in the spring, especially when we're skiing on volcanoes, is rapid warming. And um, so I was transitioning my skis right in front of me and heard the sound of rockfall that I'm familiar with. The whole, full decade before that I'd been skiing in the backcountry, knew the sound of rockfall and knew what to do. You don't look up, you don't look to see where the rock's coming from. You just turtle over and try to protect yourself. And somehow across an entire volcano, I don't know what the mathematical odds would be, but the first sign of rockfall, first sound rockfall that we heard all day, and the rock fell directly off the cliff above me, and landed directly on the back of my head in the middle of my upper back. And I didn't have time to pull in my arms from transitioning my skis, so it landed on my left forearm. And fortunately, my helmet saved my life. That inch and a half of high density foam and plastic is literally why I'm here today. And
Yeah.
that's still like a pretty radical sentence to say out loud. And then uh, ultimately, like, in that situation, I was losing a lot of blood out of my left arm and had to make a couple huge decisions, not quickly. So we decided to self rescue so that we didn't put anybody else in harm's way. Tourniqueted my left arm at the shoulder, climbed off that face of the mountain, and then skied down the south face to the bottom of Timberline ski area, one of the ski resorts on Mount Hood. And I got life flighted to Portland to a level 1 trauma center. And um, the like that whole experience, uh, like really, obviously rocked my world. But maybe the craziest part of it is that I was relatively okay physically. Um, and in some ways that was like very dissonant to what my actual like lived experience was.
Yeah.
And having to go through that, like having to go through the accident and the experience mentally. So, um, came out the other side, and I was struggling with thoughts of, and it started as questions like why'd that rock fall on me? Was I supposed to die that day? Am I supposed to be dead? And then that morphed into thoughts of I should be dead. I'm supposed to be dead, and
Mm.
I should make that happen on my own. And that spiraled into some really dark, scary, intense suicidal thoughts and depression. I didn't really have the language, didn't really have any outlets to be able to share that with people around me. So I was really experiencing all that on my own. And um, like I said, that's the greatest, most important inflection point in my life, and that's ultimately because it gave me the greatest opportunity in life.
Yeah.
Uh, it gave me a whole second chance at life itself, and uh, for that, I am forever grateful. And everything that I've done since then, in the 7 years since, uh, is all growing to a better track, a better path in life. And um, yeah, I'm not wasting this second chance.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for the vulnerability. Um, that is a wild experience that you went through. Um, and coming out on the other side of that is what is so cool about your whole story and everything that you do. Um, is instead of taking that as a negative and like you said, you struggled. It wasn't easy uh, after the accident, but you found your way out of it, and that is incredible. And I give my kudos to you. Um, I had a guy on the podcast last night, a close friend of mine, and he's in recovery as well. And we were talking about like the idea of if certain things never happened in our lives, like these incredibly painful moments, whether, he was talking in the context of him losing his mom and dad within a year of each other, both of different cancers when he was in his early 20s. And that shaped who he was as a person. In that direct moment, he thought, oh man, this is the worst thing that could ever happen. I lose both my parents and I'm addicted to drugs and, you know, depression and suicidal ideation. But the point of him talking about that was he wouldn't be the person that he is today. He wouldn't have been sitting on my couch yesterday in the studio recording a podcast. We would have never met working at the same mental health and substance use treatment center in Portland, Maine, of all places. I'm from California, he's from Pennsylvania, and we happened to meet. And, create an awesome bond and friendship out of it. All of these things, as painful as they can be in the moment, it's kind of cool to look back on them and think, man, my life is totally different. And I think that's why both you and I do what we do today, so that people can understand that there is a way out. Um, I've lost a lot of friends and family to drug addiction and suicide, and it, sometimes you just want to yell like, I, w- I wish you could have figured it out. I wish you could have seen this side of it. And it's like a frustration in the moment, but as someone that has dealt with that as well, I also get it. And um, influential people in my life, or um, another like Mac Miller. I loved his music, and when I first heard the news of like Mac Miller passing away, my first thought was like, man, I wish he could have just come to this program that I went to in Maine that saved my life, like, or found someone to help him get there. But I also get it, and it's every experience that we face in our lives shapes who we are today. And you can either take it as a positive and make your life more positive, or you can take it as a negative and continue down like a negative path. And being on that negative path is also okay, because there is light at the end of the tunnel, and it's okay to not be okay and find your way back to kind of back to the light, for lack of a better term. Um, so I'm incredibly inspired by what you do, and like I said, thank you for putting in the work to make a film like this. It's inspirational, and um, you've got a showing coming up in here in Colorado, correct?
Yeah, I've got the first 2 showings of the film coming up. We're doing, what I've dubbed the world premiere, because 'cause I've never gotten to have a world premiere for a film I made, so I said, "Fuck
Awesome,
it, I made this film, I'm making the event, I'm gonna call it a world premiere," right
sweet,
here in my hometown in Summit County, Colorado, at Summit High School, my alma mater. The principal is
amazing,
my old English teacher, and he donated the space. I'm doing it, in partnership with our local mental health nonprofit, Building Hope, and also in partnership with Arapahoe Basin, my original and only home hill that I'll ever have.
yes,
So it's the whole purpose behind it is to create a community celebration on mental health. We're using Feel It All, the film, to be the draw, get people in there, and create that the cool, fun vibe of a ski movie premiere. And then we're combining that with community health initiatives. That's why I'm doing it in partnership with Building Hope. We're gonna have all these different community health partners there, make a wellness fair. Like, instead of having poster signing tables like you'd have at a ski movie, it's gonna be community wellness. And then on top of that, we're also combining it with my public speaking, and public speaking is one of my other careers. I should have said that for one of the hats that I wear in my little intro. And most of my public speaking is focused on mental health and suicide, and telling these similar stories to what we're talking about today. And it's like seriously radical to me, the doors that has opened in my world in the past couple of years. Like last month I was speaking at an entrepreneurship conference at MIT, and like,
wow,
this is taking me all over the place. I get to connect with amazing communities, but I've never actually gotten to bring that impact home. So I'm using this film to get to do that. And so we're kicking that off here in Summit County, May 29th. And then 2 days later, May 31st, in Crested Butte, Colorado, which is another community that I have a lot of love for in my heart. And that also, kind of feels like a second home in some ways. So it's fun to get to start it off like right there. And Crested Butte's cool too, because that's where Jesse, my co-director, lives. And so that's going to be his hometown show. And same kind of vibe there, you know, create it as a community celebration on mental health. That one's in partnership with CB State of Mind, which is this rad little mental health nonprofit right in Crested Butte. It's run by this one woman, Megan, who's super, super cool. And she finally got to hire a second employee this winter. So super excited for her
Awesome.
in that. And like I've had her out to Solomon Ski Film Tours in the past when we've done them in Crested Butte. And like that's what this is all about, you know. It's like we can create this film that uses my story to impact people when they watch it, but I want to bring that impact actually, you know, in person, and bring it on the ground, and connect people with the resources so that once they're inspired by this story and want to make a change for themselves or in their communities, bam, the resources are right there so that we can, you know, not just have this be a flash in the pan, but really get the snowball rolling
Yeah.
into something a lot bigger. And that's like, you know, I think like part of figuring out how to do all of this is like how do we make this impact exponential. And the reality too, when we're talking about mental health and suicide, when we're talking about any sort of cultural changes, like we don't know a fraction of what that actual impact is. But um, you know, there's like a couple of cliches I always draw on. Obviously, the one of like, if it helps one person, then it's all worthwhile, and that's really fucking true. Like it, like I am positive that this is going to save many lives. I've received, like, you know, I honestly don't know how many dozens of messages of people directly saying I've saved their life, and that's what this film's going to do, and that's what these events are going to do. But um, the like the other reality too is just like this other cliche that I sometimes go back to. That's uh, if I could have heard my own story when I was living it, then it would have been a survival guide. And
Yeah.
the reality is that my story, your story, our stories are the stories of our community. And so using my story as a survival guide for other people is the best thing I could be doing on this planet, and the way that I can turn all that, you know, when we talk about like the accident, whatever, like the years I've suffered through suicidal thoughts, uh, you turn that negative into very simply into a positive. And like that's the whole purpose of all this.
Yeah. I I've been kind of dumbstruck this whole time talking to you. Um, and it feels good to know that it's almost like I don't even know how to put words to it. It's like it feels pretty cool to know that other people care about this stuff. And it feels awesome to know that you've been able to create this platform for yourself that is helping other people, like completely altruistically to help other people. And I think about this often. You know, there's times that I'm like editing this podcast. I'm like, damn, like I'm not making any money from this. I'm spending, you know, a ton of time doing this, but it's like what you said, those messages that you get from somebody random, like, hey, I listened to this episode of your podcast with Drew Petersen and it made such an impact on me. I listened to your episode of the podcast with Alex Schlope and his story helped me. Like those are the things that get me back to the computer and like, okay, it's fine. I can edit some more social clips and hopefully it reaches a bigger audience and it keeps going and people, you know, listen to this and get hope and inspiration from it. Because as I'm sitting here and listening to I am, and yeah, I hope you know that the work that you're doing doesn't go unseen, um, and people do care about it. I for a long time felt like it feels like you'll read things in the media or like stigmas around substance abuse or mental health and it's like why am I doing this, and it really is because of those, like if it helps one person awesome, and like the people that don't understand it or want to talk negatively about it, they they surely do not understand it. Um, so I I think what you're doing is awesome, and it's awesome to see that other people in this industry are pushing to make a change. So kudos to you, man. Seriously.
Thanks, Austin. Right back at you, man. It's such a gift to be able to connect with people like you who have this shared passion.
Yeah,
And like that's the purpose in talking about this stuff. Whatever form we're talking about it in, whether it be film, podcasts, stories, or just one-on-one with a homie or
yeah,
one-on-one with somebody you meet on the chairlift. Like that is the whole point of talking about all this stuff. It's to form connection and like the so in 2022 I released my last film, Ups and Downs, and that one's like a more esoteric expose of my personal mental health journey. It's kind of like an exploration of feelings and the human experience through the mountains and valleys of ski touring,
yeah,
and that um, that film, on one side when I was questioning if I was going to make that film because I knew very early on in all of this I wanted to use my story, I wanted to use what I'm doing. I want to use this platform that I built for 10 years of a ski career to do good, and I knew that this is what I wanted to use it for. But when I was making that film, at first it was like, whoa, am I about to commit to this? Is this going to ruin my ski career? And I just had to get to a place where the motivation was pure to help other people, and where I could get to a place where I could very eloquently just say fuck it, and anybody who doesn't dig what I'm doing in this world and what I'm trying to do to help other people, then fuck them.
yeah,
And like it's funny how like simple that is, but like even when I like go connect with like middle schoolers and high schoolers, they're like, how did you, were you worried about what people thought? Like, no, fuck them. That's like literally the place you have to get to. And then the flip side of that is that after I put this out into the world, like I don't use the word incredible very intentionally because it is very credible because I lived it. I lived through you know, what could have been a full lifetime of depression and suicidal thoughts. So, like, all of it is very credible. But I went from feeling like I was completely alone and the only person out of 8 billion people on this planet to be experiencing this pain to literally receiving thousands of messages online. And I mean, I connect with like, I don't know, it's got to be thousands of people in person who say similar things,
yeah,
mostly to the effect of like, thank you for doing what you do, thank you for sharing your story because I don't feel as alone.
yeah,
And like that's the point, man. That's the point in us having this conversation today. It's the point in these events that I'm having is help people feel less alone, because the reality is that all of this uh, mental health, suicidal thoughts, like seriously, suicidal thoughts are normal. All of this stuff is very normal. It's human. It's natural. It's something that uh, you know like we can use statistics, but I feel like statistics don't even scratch the surface of how many people are actually dealing with these things. So like the time that we're alive and the time that we're in this moment, dude, like 2024, like what a fucking time to be alive and be able to use our stories and be able to um, build all this connection and create a future where that 9-year-old kid that I grew up as like doesn't have to hide, that doesn't have to feel alone. Like
yeah,
it's wonderful, it's beautiful, and that's like you know that's why it's so fucking cool what you do too, and the fact that you invite me on here, like, and everybody who's out there listening to this, like, we've all got so much love for each other and so much in common. So
yeah,
just want to pass that on.
yeah. And I appreciate that, man. Truly, I I think that this can be a scary and isolating thought or industry or ideology at times, where I had those same thoughts. I had the same thoughts of man, if I start really going public about like my past, there might not be like a job. And at the end of the day, I could care less. And the cool thing about the world now is that we are like pushing that dial in the right direction. And I've been pleasantly surprised over the last few years that the more and more I've been like public about my past and my story, the people that accept it and listen to it and want to be a part of it way outweighs the comments from like very like a shallow minded person saying, "Oh, you're just weak. Like you could have stopped the drugs. Like you're weak." And the stigmas around mental health and addiction, I think, will always be there. Um, really, with any social issue, religion, gender, color, creed, anything, there will always be some level of stigma or someone that maybe doesn't agree with your past or what you're doing now to shape your future, and that's okay because, like you said, if it positively affects one person, that's all. That's all I need out of this. Um, so what do the next few months look like for you moving into the summer here? You've got the premieres, hopefully finishing up. You've got the final export coming here. What does the summer look like for you? Are you going to ski anywhere in other hemispheres, or what's your plan?
Man, skiing used to be a one track mind for me. All I ever wanted to do was go down to the southern hemisphere and ski in the summer. But
Yeah.
life's expanded for me in a lot of ways now, and running is my passion in the summer. So honestly, dude, I'm so fired up to run all summer long,
Yeah.
and that's just another way to experience the mountains. And one of the funny things, and like I think a huge part of why I love running so much, is there's no avalanche danger.
Oh
Like
man.
seriously, dude, like when
Yeah.
I can just go run around on peaks, not have to have a partner and not worry about avalanche danger, only worry about tripping, like man, that's like so peaceful. So that's what I'm
Yeah.
fired up on really for summer. With the film, we got these couple showings to kick things off, and then working on events really all across the Rocky Mountain West. I'm trying to get into some big cities to be able to connect with people as well. But hopefully be able to at least make another two handfuls of events happen with this film. We're doing more of those events that are like those like hero level events that are like the community celebration on mental health, public speaking, community wellness fairs and stuff, but then also doing stuff like group runs and showing the film after a group run to form a lot of
Well,
connection, have a bunch of NA beer there for people. uh, so there's a
sweet.
kind of a whole gamut there. And then on the running front, um, I'm running Leadville again in August, which I'm super
Awesome.
excited about. That's the 100 miler that's in the film, and that's like my hometown 100.
Yeah.
I grew up in Silverthorne, so it's 26 miles as the crow flies. I remember looking that up when we were working on the film, from here to the start line.
Yeah.
Um, so it really is the hometown 100. And man, I've ran that the past 2 years, so this will be my third Leadville, and I have so much love for those mountains, that course, the people, the Leadville family. So that's what I'm really excited to shift my focus back into, is kind of that purpose and direction that running and the race is going to give me. Yeah, and man, time flies though. The calendar flies. So, uh,
Yeah.
summer's gonna be gone before we know it. And the goal is to keep using this film, keep having these conversations around mental health and suicide, and then um, jump into you know ski movie season and skiing next winter. One of the other things I do is I started and I produced the Quality Ski Time Film Tour in partnership with Solomon in the fall. We've done, like, in the past 3 years, we've done 46 events across North America, everywhere
Wow.
from like Calgary to Boston. Um, and so we'll be doing that stuff again in the fall. Um, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do it at the same capacity as I used to because I'm
Yeah.
balancing it with Feel It All and all this other work.
Yeah.
But that's another way that I enjoy connecting with people in person. So yeah, as I say all that out loud, I'm like, whew,
Got a lot.
that's a lot of stuff going on, but it's all really good stuff, and um, it's really exciting too. Like after 2 years of work on this film, like it's just going to feel so good to be able to get it out into the world and um, yeah, connect with a lot of human beings.
Yeah, it's an accomplishment and truly an awesome one. Um, so with this podcast, as the listeners know, I leave the last portion for guests. What we say in the rooms of like Alcoholics Anonymous and stuff, we call it burning desires. So I always give a guest an opportunity to like share one last thing or burning desire or piece of insight to the audience. So I wanted to give you that opportunity. If there's anything you wanted to share with the audience as a kind of goodbye.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
One of the things that was coming to mind earlier when you were talking about the stigma around mental health addiction, suicide, is we talk a lot about the stigma around mental health, and in some ways, I feel like that word can be overused or it can
Yep.
become kind of a profundity when we hear it too much. So every now and then, I'll actually look up the definition of stigma. So I just Googled it, and the definition of stigma is a noun, a mark of disgrace associated with a particular circumstance, quality, or person. And I bring that up because that mark of disgrace is what we're trying to erase in
I love that.
society and from our persons. Um, like I said, sometimes I forget what that definition actually is. Uh, but it's good to go back to it. And because it's such a profundity, because it gets overused sometimes, I sometimes steer away from using the word stigma. But that's by definition, by denotation, like that is what we're trying to get rid of.
Yeah.
And that's what you're trying to get rid of. That's what I'm trying to get rid of. That's what this film's trying to get rid of. So the last thing I want to say is that for 2 years I've been self-funding this thing, and after the success of my last film, Ups and Downs, I was like, oh man, like that was super successful. I'm going to be able to do another one of these, get it funded. I haven't been able to do that. I'm super grateful to the sponsors that have come on. Mountain Gazette sponsored Ups and Downs. They said yes immediately to Feel It All. And then the presenting sponsor, Feel It All, is UC Health, which is Colorado's biggest hospital org. Super grateful to them. And at the same time, we need to get this thing across the finish line. And I hate asking for help. I just am finishing a 32-minute film about my aversion to asking for help. It's still super difficult for me, especially, in the day to day. And I was very reluctant and averse to crowdfunding this film. And I am doing what I got to do to get this thing across the finish line. And one of the conversations that I had with somebody, it was last summer, because I've been thinking about crowdfunding this film for way over a year.
Yeah.
And last summer, this guy told me, it was like, I don't remember his exact wording, but it was something effective. Dude, just swallow your pride. This film and this story isn't helping anybody by sitting on a hard drive. And he's right. And I built up this whole campaign for a Kickstarter, and I was like, oh man, I hope I don't have to do this because I still don't want to ask for help. And
Yeah.
then 3 weeks ago, I had another conversation. 4 weeks ago, maybe this was at that conference at MIT actually. New friend, uh, super high level human being. I was telling him what I was going through and what I was weighing and considering with this, and he told me, "You're not asking people for help. You are offering people the opportunity to support and contribute to the mission, impact, and cultural change that this film and this work can and will have." And I am so happy that I met him a month ago, and I'm so happy that he said that to me,
Yeah.
because that is something that helped me give myself permission to do it this way. Um, Honestly, it feels very uncomfortable. It feels very
Yeah.
uncomfortable to be plugging this at the end of a podcast. It feels very uncomfortable to, um, be putting a Kickstarter out there, because realistically, I am still asking for help. So, all of that is to say, if anybody is listening to this and is moved by this and wants to contribute to this impact and to this cultural change, I would greatly appreciate it if you could consider
Yeah.
supporting and contributing to the project. And the purpose and the beauty behind crowdfunding is that, if everybody chipped in $1, this thing would be done. We'd have it
Yeah.
out in the world. Seriously, like, just on Instagram, everybody who watched the teaser of the film, if everybody contributed $1, the whole thing would be funded. We'd be able to have, um, you know, money to use to widening events and distribution and helping people. So, all that's to say, thanks to the people who have had my back since day one. Thanks to the people who have my back now, and
Yeah.
thanks to you for, believing in this mission too.
Absolutely, man. And it's a mission that I hope a lot of people can see, because it deserves the platform that you're trying to give it. And I know it will be a success. It's not a matter of if, it's like when. And, that is, I can only imagine the stress of that. We just got like partnership level with Spotify, and they're like, you can monetize your podcast now. And myself and my producer work our asses off on this thing. And I was terrified going on my Instagram story and being like, hey, guys, if you can help us out to keep making this possible, like, it's terrifying. And I understand that. And, uh, you know, unfortunately, in this world, things aren't free. And in order to like do these things, it does take funding. Um, and sponsorship money only goes so far, and only so many sponsors want to get involved. And there's all these aspects, that people don't understand when it comes to projects like this. So for the listeners, the link will be down below. Please go help this guy out. Help me, it helps me out knowing that this film is going out. um, I will surely be donating. I know tons of friends of mine, once they hear this, will love to get involved, Drew. And truly thank you for coming on the podcast today. It has been a joy to host you. I hope for many more conversations like this with you in the future, and a friendship. And thank you for all you do, man.
Thank you very much, Austin. Thanks for having me on, and thank you for the shared passion that we have, because this conversation is one step chipping away at the future that we both believe in. So, thank you
Yeah.
very much.
You got it. Thank you, all the listeners. Falling off the floor with Drew Petersen. We are out.